My name is June Ashford, and I am 75 years old. 3 days ago, my daughter called me for the first time in 8 months. Not to ask how I was doing, not to hear about her grandchildren she has never visited. She called to tell me I needed to sell the land my late husband and I built together, $3 million in 2 weeks, to save the family from bankruptcy. The same family that stopped inviting me to Christmas dinner because they said my life no longer fitted. The same daughter who told her own children that Grandma June had married beneath her. The same son-in-law who once called my husband a glorified dirt digger to his face. And now they need us. Before I tell you what happened at my daughter's 60th birthday party, what was revealed, and the choice I made, let me take you back to where this really began. 7 years ago, I was still the mother my children bragged about at every gathering. I had raised 2 daughters who seemed to have bright futures. Victoria, my eldest, had the right job, the right house, the right circle of friends. Clarissa was married to a man who looked successful on paper. I believed the path they were on was the only one that mattered: big titles, big houses, big opinions. Then I met the man who would become my second husband, Ethan, at a farmer's market. He stood behind a wooden table covered in tomatoes and herbs, wearing a faded shirt and boots caked with mud. When he spoke about soil and seasons, his eyes lit up with a quiet passion I had never seen in any boardroom. I came back the next weekend, and the next. When I finally brought him home, Victoria took one look at his calloused hands and asked the question that would define the next 7 years. "So, Ethan, what's your real job?" He simply smiled and answered, "This is my real job, I grow food." The silence that followed was loud. Clarissa and her husband Derek laughed under their breath. I pretended not to notice, but I noticed. Our engagement gathering was supposed to be a celebration. Victoria insisted on hosting it. 20 guests, champagne, canapés. Ethan wore his best shirt, ironed by himself. Derek arrived late in a new car and made sure everyone saw it. When he shook Ethan's hand, he looked at his boots and said, "Nice boots." "Do they come with the tractor?" A few people laughed. Ethan just smiled. Then Victoria raised her glass and said, "To June and Ethan, my mother has always been independent. I just hope she won't regret throwing away everything she worked for this." She gestured vaguely at the life she could not understand. That night I made a decision. I would leave the city. I would build a life with Ethan on the land, and I would stop waiting for my children to see what I saw. Vermont welcomed us. We bought 200 acres of rolling farmland. The house was a fixer-upper, drafty windows, a kitchen from another decade, but it was ours. Ethan worked from dawn to dusk. I learned beside him how to read the soil, when to plant, what the weather meant. Within a few years, our organic produce was selling at markets and to restaurants. We raised 2 grandchildren who came to live with us after difficult times in the city. Lily and Noah grew up with dirt under their fingernails and laughter in the fields. I had never been happier. There was one thing: Ethan asked me to keep quiet. During our first winters, while I thought he was simply reading journals by the fire, he was finalizing patents and speaking with people from another life, a life at MIT. Ethan held a doctorate in agricultural engineering. He had walked away from big offers years earlier. Quietly, he built a company that combined smart technology with real farming. No flashy launches, just steady growth. "They don't deserve to know," he once said about my children. "And I don't need their respect." I never argued, but I always wondered what would happen if they found out. The call came late one night. Clarissa was crying real, desperate sobs. Derek had made bad investments. Everything was gone. The house, the savings, even the property Victoria had put up as collateral. They needed $3 million in 2 weeks. "It's just dirt, Mother," Clarissa said. "Sell a piece of the land, help us, you owe us, we're family." I hung up after promising to think, but one sentence stayed with me. Derek had said Ethan's company was supposed to fail. I could not sleep. I searched online. Derek had been terminated from his fund after a massive short position against a sustainable farming company. The stock had risen dramatically. He had bet everything on it failing. The company was Ethan S. For 8 months, my son-in-law had tried to profit from the destruction of the very life I had chosen. He had even used Victoria's retirement money to do it. And he had written that the look on my face when we went bankrupt would be worth more than the money. I saved every document. Then, I accepted the invitation to Victoria's 60th birthday party. They expected me to sign papers in front of 40 guests. They had no idea what was coming. The restaurant was everything Victoria loved: crystal, white linen, soft jazz. 40 guests who came to be seen. Ethan and I arrived simply dressed. Victoria met us with a tight smile. The leather folder with the sale contract was already prepared. After the main course, she stood and made a speech about family and support. A waiter placed the folder in front of me. "All she needs to do is sign," Victoria said. "Just a small piece of land to help her mother keep her home." 40 pairs of eyes turned to me. Derek circled closer. "Your husband's land isn't worth much anyway. What has he ever contributed?" "He plants vegetables." A few people laughed. Victoria pressed, "Will you sign, or will you prove you never really cared about this family?" I stood. I did not reach for the pen. "Before I answer," I said, "I have a question for Derek. Can you explain exactly how you lost all your money?" The room went still. I told them about the short position, about the leaked messages where he celebrated betting against my mother's little farm project, and looked forward to my face when we failed. Gasps filled the room. I passed around the Forbes article. Ethan's company was valued at $47 million, the MIT engineer who still wore muddy boots. Victoria's glass slipped from her hand and shattered. Derek went pale. Ethan stood and spoke quietly. "I am a farmer. I am also an engineer." The two are not mutually exclusive. Grandma June, sitting in the corner, called out, "I always said he was the smartest one in this room." I looked at my daughter. "You spent 7 years telling me I made a mistake. You excluded me. You told the children I chose poverty. Now you ask me to sell the land that feeds our grandchildren to cover a bet made against us." "I will not sign." Ethan offered a limited loan with clear conditions: repayment, professional help for Derek, and a permanent end to demands. Derek stormed out. Clarissa followed in tears. Within minutes, the room emptied. A week later, Clarissa called to say she was separating from Derek. Victoria sold the big house and moved to a smaller place. She never apologized, but the accusations stopped. My son-in-law Robert began calling every Sunday, short, awkward conversations that slowly grew longer. Grandma June, my own mother, came to stay for a month and taught the children to bake and play cards. Lily and Noah adored her. I sit on the porch now, watching the fields turn gold in the evening light. 7 years ago, I was terrified of losing my family. I spent so many nights wondering if they were right. I had been waiting for people who were looking in the wrong direction. Boundaries are not punishment. They are protection for yourself, for the people who matter, for the life you have built. I could not make my daughter love me the way I needed. I could not force Clarissa to see past her fear, but I could choose differently. I have Ethan, the children, my mother June, and a son-in-law who is finally trying. That is enough. That is more than enough. Thank you for listening to an old woman's story. If any part of this stayed with you, leave a comment and tell me where you are watching from. You are allowed to set boundaries, even with family, especially with family. This is Hidden Truth Revenge. All characters, conflicts, and events are fictional and created only for entertainment and educational purposes.